thank you for organizing today and everything you've done to make this happen. So thank you very much. And all the partners in our effort here, Laura, Angela, I don't know if there's somebody on the line from the Urban League, but I want to thank them all as well. Just a couple of things regarding just, I guess, the protocol for this call is if when our two presenters are presenting, if you could all be on mute, that would be great. So we minimize the background noise. And also as you think about questions you want to ask, if you just want to type them into the chat function, which on my screen is at the bottom of the screen, please do so. And then we'll share those questions with the two presenters. Did I forget anything, Quandra?
No, we will have a few minutes at the end, as Bruce said, to ask a few questions. So please leave all your questions for the end. Please put them in the chat. I'll make sure I facilitate that toward the end of the presentation. And I believe that, and if you can always raise your hand as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Bruce.
Okay, thank you. And I've been excited about this marketing and branding workshop that we're hosting, and I'm glad that we have the ability to do this virtually. The original plan was to do it face-to-face, but it's great to at least be together virtually today. And I'm excited because we have two experts in marketing and branding and marketing strategy who've joined us today. But what also is very interesting about both of them is they both founded, they're entrepreneurs, and they both founded the organizations that they're with today. So they've walked in your shoes, many of your shoes, in terms of starting a business and knowing all the challenges that are inherent in starting a business. And I also want to express, I know this is such a unique time for so many of you. This is a challenge. And to try and keep a positive attitude and look for the opportunities that maybe this difficult period presents themselves to come out stronger and better organization than you went coming in. That's the outlook that I would encourage all of you to take. I know that's easier said than done sometimes when there's such a disruption. But most importantly, I hope all of you and your families are well. I mean, you can get lost in all of the challenges we have day to day, but without your health, we don't have a lot. And I just hope all of you and all the people that you care about are doing as well as possible during this difficult time. So with that, I am going to introduce our two panelists who will each tell a little bit about their story and their thoughts on marketing and branding and how that can be meaningful tool in your toolkit to help you build a more successful business and to potentially ramp up the rate of growth that you can experience even during this period of time. And then, as Quandra mentioned, towards the last 15 or 20 minutes of the hour that we're spending with you, we'll open this up to question and answers. So I would like to introduce Sherman Wright. Sherman is the co-founder and managing partner of 1035, a creative company specializing in transforming brands through culture. He's worked on several award-winning campaigns, including customers like Coca-Cola, Nike, Disney. He's been actively involved in his community as a member of One Goal, Lurie's Children's Hospital, and the Francis W. Parker School. And our second panelist is Melissa Ballate. Melissa is a senior strategist skilled at helping organizations communicate their value and leveraging their brands. She's worked on the world's largest auto manufacturer, the city of Chicago, and countless businesses and nonprofits to help them use their brands to achieve their strategic goals. At the tender age of 23, she took all the money out of her 401k to start Blue Daring, her company today. She's on the board of Loyola University Quinlan School of Business, is a member of the Economic Club of Chicago, and serves on the local board of Junior Achievement. So with that, Quandra, is it okay if we start with you for the next 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll go over to Sherman?
Melissa, he meant to say, yes.
I'm sorry, Melissa. I'm looking
I'm
at
like,
Quandra.
you
Melissa,
are
can we start with you?
not.
And then go,
Please don't put me on the hot seat like
I
that.
got too many faces on the screen. I'm sorry. Melissa, can we start with you? And then we'll go over to Sherman.
Yeah, for sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to confirm before I start flowing that you can all hear me well, that there's no issues. Yeah? All right, cool. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. You know, it really is an honor and a privilege, and it's really nice to just see faces amidst this time. I am going to start by just sharing a very little bit about our company, a little bit about my story, you know, kind of maybe repeating a little bit of what Bruce said and how I started, how I built this business, and then going into my thoughts on branding strategically, which is what I personally care about the most, like thinking strategically, not just, you know, jumping, but, you know, thinking thoughtfully about what you're doing, and just, you know, some thoughts about managing the situation. And I'll second something that actually, you know, Sherman mentioned a little earlier that we've talked about in our calls before this moment. You know, if anybody tells you that they're an expert in terms of what to do in a pandemic, you know, run, because nobody knows, nobody's an expert. You know, I'm not only speaking to you as a seasoned brand strategist, but as a business owner. I got a business, you know, we're all the same here. So, you know, I also want to approach this conversation with that humility. Let me pull up my screen. Okay. All right, so we got the screen up. You guys can see my screen?
Yes.
All right, so thinking strategically about your brand. High level, this Blue Daring, the company that I founded, is a branding and strategy company. What we do is we partner with people with vision, people who see things where others don't, people who have an idea to do something differently, people who are challenging the status quo, and we help them think strategically about what they're doing so that how they present themselves is contextual and relevant. And then conversely, once they understand that, what they're doing and how to position it, making sure that their brand and how the world sees them is, you know, reflective of who they are, reflective of their values, reflective of the value that they bring. Some cool stuff that we've done that I love to share. We're currently working with a big company like Toyota, helping them communicate the value of diversity and inclusion. We've worked with people here locally, the city locally, to create a cohesive brand for the riverfront so that all of it looks consistent. And then we also work with small businesses. One of our favorite partners, a company who focuses on diversity and inclusion consulting and helping them, you know, communicate what they do and their intellectual capital in creative ways that matter to their customers. But the coolest thing that I'm proudest of is my team. And so this is us at, you know, this Tuesday's team meeting. In the spirit of trying to be creative, we all dressed up for our team meeting. So you have somebody dressed up like Bruno Mars, somebody dressed up like 2020, somebody dressed up like Blue Daring. I dressed up as a Lego. It's a pretty safe costume because I kind of just look like myself, but just put on a t-shirt. But really, you know, I think this is really the proudest thing that I've done, which is build a company that cares about each other, cares about our clients, cares about what we do. And as Bruce said, I started this business one day before I turned 23 years old. I am the daughter of a hairdresser and making things beautiful, but also a company called cars.com. And how I got there, I was at a teller at LaSalle Bank, and I was like, God, I could do better, and the internet was hot. So I went to get certified in the internet. And with that certification, I got a job at this wonderful company, cars.com, learned a lot, did advertising there. And at one point came to this epiphany where I realized that, you know, there's really, really smart people, you know, who are strategic thinkers, have a lot to share. But they don't know how to communicate their ideas in a compelling way, in like a clear way, in an emotive way. And then there's people who are all looks, all talk, all this, all that, all show, but they don't realize that in business, the purpose of communications is to advance strategic objectives. And that's what inspired me to start Blue Daring. Now, in June, it'll be 17 years ago. So it's been a great journey, and I've had the privilege to do a lot of fun things with my team. So I want to get into my thoughts on branding. And you know, what our firm does is branding and strategy. And I feel those two things are intrinsically connected. It's not about, oh, let me pick a pretty logo because it's going to look nice on my website. It's about understanding what it is that your business is about and then building around that. So, you know, just to like kind of visualize that a little bit, we're here to talk about marketing planning. We're here to talk about branding, but there is no planning. There is no branding without strategy. You know, strategy, like what you want to do, what your unique value is, who cares about that value that you have? You know, what's going on in the world? That's the anchor. So I want to just talk about that. I want to set that as the foundation for my comments and then kind of segue into how thinking strategically is going to affect your brand. And the other thing I want to say is that I think I mentioned this lightly, but it's very important to understand that a brand isn't a logo. It isn't a name. It isn't copy on your website. It's the way that you show up in the world. It's the way that you answer the phone when a prospective customer calls. It's the things that you care about. It's how you conduct yourself in the office. It's how you deliver your work. So I want us just like to preface my thoughts just to think about that more holistically, because I think we make the mistake of thinking of brands like, oh, it's just this thing. It's not. It's a relationship. And I'll expound on that idea a little bit further. So building on this idea of strategy, you really, before you even think about your brand, need to think about these, you know, kind of what your strategy is. And what that is where you want to go. Is this a business that, you know, you're just launching to sustain yourself? Is this something you want to grow to be something big? What's happening around you, like what your customers care about? Who cares about them? What are trends that you can capitalize on? The third thing is, what are your values, you know, because that's what defines us. And there's not a set of values that is better than another. It's just important to know who you are, because you can't serve anybody unless you know clearly who you are. So just having, you know, kind of distinguishing that. And then, you know, understanding what you do and how you do it. And perhaps if there's any way that how you do what you do is unique. So how does that affect our brand, which is what we're here to talk about? Take where you want to go, like your vision, right? Like that's like your objectives. What are some considerations for a brand? You know, are you a business that is looking to, again, just pay your bills and just have a nice business that, you know, is an extension of yourself? Are you a business that wants to ultimately sell or wants to grow? And I'll give you an exceptional example of this. We were working with a firm that they do air filtration, how very relevant, you know, at this moment in time. And the dude who started the business, his family has been in air filtration for 100 years. So I was like, oh my God, you know, we were tasked with like naming the business and branding it from scratch. I was like, you got to name that brand. You got to name that business, maybe your last name, because you have this great reputation. Why was that not a sound solution? And why did we choose against it? Because the purpose, the reason that that man started that business was to sell it within 5 years. So we can't name the business his last name if he's not going to be behind it in 5 years. So again, it's just an understanding of what you want to do with your business in order to be able to, you know, brand it and name it in a way that really reflects the future and allows you latitude in the future. And then to that point of latitude, I think this is a really important point. You know, it's important to understand not what you make. Those Toyota makes cars, right? McDonald's makes, you know, fries and burgers. It's not what you make. It's the impact that those things have on people. Like, what value do they bring? So let's take a real kind of simple example. Let's say that, you know, you were a burger shop, like you just had like the best burgers in Logan Square. That's what you had going on. And so you created this logo that was a burger. But guess what? Something came up down the line that like meat got out of vogue, or you just didn't want to do that anymore. People got tired of burgers, and then you started to expand beyond that. If you created a brand that was all around this product, you would be limited in your ability to expand. And so if that restaurant, for instance, focused on the fact that I make delicious, indulgent food, or I make indulgent food with unique flavors, then they could expand to things beyond that. So again, don't focus on the thing that you make, because with technology and with the world, the way how quickly it's changing, that could change. Focus your brand on the value that you have on your customer. The second thing, it's what's happening in the world around you. What are your customers? What world do they live in? This next question is like marketing 101. What do you do that no one else can? I've met a lot of, small businesses, right? And so I'll give you an example, financial services advisors, real estate professionals. And I'm like, hey, what can you do that no one else can? They're like, well, I care. Nobody else cares. Well, not really. A lot of people care. So I think, you got to do some deep diving, like what is it about what you're doing that no one else can, because that is going to influence, that might be like the first bit of copy on your website. That might be the way you shape like your collateral materials all around this unique value proposition. Equally as important, what kind of customers don't you want to attract? I worked with this company who was a web development company, right? And you're like, oh my God, we keep getting all these like leads for $5,000 projects or $1,000 projects. We can only support projects that are $100,000 or more. So I said, hey, why don't you put a picture of your office with the 50 engineers that you are supporting on salary and put that on the front page of your website, So again, like this then gave the signal that whoever came to their website, oh, this is a big team. This is not something that's, a small job. And there's nothing with small jobs. It's just be conscious of what kind of business, what kinds of things you experience that you don't necessarily, that you're not the best fit for. And think proactively on how you can put out messages and visuals and kind of express your brand in a way that's going to repel that and attract what it actually is aligned to you. And any kind of thoughts or questions? I'm flowing. I got a few minutes to flow, and I'm timing that. But any thoughts before I proceed? Okay. I don't know if I can see the chat with that.
So does anyone have any questions? Maybe one or two burning questions before Melissa continues? I guess not. You're doing an excellent job, Melissa.
All right, good. Same thing about values, like how do you and your customers' values represent? There might be a firm that's all about, being prudent, right? If you're a financial advisor, it's all about prudence. If you're a lobbying firm, it's all about being connected into Chicago, being connected, connecting people, understanding your city. So just having an understanding of what your customers care about and how that connects to what you care about, so that you can again reflect that through visuals, through messaging, through the places that you show up. And that's an extension of that point. And then finally, how do you do what you do, the product or services that you offer? I've been flowing with examples, and I'll continue with one that's close to home, right? So our firm is a branding and strategy company. I have people who can design amazing, beautiful things, people who can write, people with creative ideas. And it's like, how can I use that beyond just like serving my customers? So, not a few years ago, it's been a while, but like with all that talent, we've made music videos, we've made works of art, we made products, and we made all kinds of things. So like, think about that thing that you make, that thing that you deliver, and what are other ways that you can apply it, not just to serve your customer, but also to keep your employees engaged and to show up in the world in a different way, in a way that isn't all about the sell, but just an opportunity to express yourself. So, to this idea of thinking strategically at times like these, I would just editorialize a little bit that, yes, things are crazy right now. It is crazy, no doubt about it. But you should never not think strategically. Strategy doesn't cost a thing. It's about reflection. It's about asking yourself the right questions, because the decisions you make today will have an impact on your future. And you certainly don't want to like survive the crisis only to be looked at like a sellout by your customers, you know? So humbly, again, some things that I think about in terms of this moment, like, you know, which are your values are most relevant right now? Are you all about transparency? Are you all about culture? Are you all about community? You know, let's say you were a business that you give back a percentage of your revenue to, you know, to the community, whatever. That's really relevant right now. What can you do that's contextual to this moment in time to activate those values? The second thing is, you know, what's your brand's most valuable asset? Like, what do people know you by? What is most important to your reputation and your, the way that people know you in the world? And, you know, for instance, once you ensure that, you know, you can survive, that you can move on the past few months, you think, hey, you know, what can I invest in? What can make me stronger? For me as a small business owner, my team is the most important thing, because and then one thing I really like is, how do you want to be remembered? You know what I mean? Like, there's something that we talk about, and I'll expound on this shortly. Like, you know, you remember your friends by how they act when things get tough, right? So how do you want your brand to be remembered? And another example to share is that aside from having, you know, Blue Daring, I also have some bookstores. I own a small interest in some bookstores at O'Hare Airport. And you can imagine that business is, you know, like dead, at least for right now, right? And we closed all our stores, but we kept one open for way longer than we had to. We were losing money. It was hard, but my manager at that bookstore said, you know what? I just want to be there, because there's people who are showing up and they don't want to show up. There's people who are traveling and they don't want to travel. And like, our bookstore is a place for them to, you know, just find a moment of peace. And so, yes, it cost us a little money, but at least we showed up when we were most needed. And that's a nice segue to this idea that, you know, we're talking about branding and marketing and strategy, but, you know, just to keep it simple, a brand is nothing more than a relationship.
Hi, Melissa, I have a question. Is this a good time to jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
From Marcus Hammond. Did you want to go ahead and answer, ask your question, Marcus?
No, I got a lot going on in the background.
Okay. So his question is, what are some best practices for communicating your values clearly?
Well, God, it's tough for me to answer that. Not because, it's tough for me to, how do you communicate your values clearly? First, know what your values are. Okay, so what is it that distinguishes you? What is, you know, part of your culture? I'll take, for example, we're creative. I think people generally like to work with us. We're generally a positive company. We're very collaborative. Those are our values. So how do I express that? I use social media to give people an insight into our personalities. We use every opportunity to highlight our team members and what they're doing. Everything that we put out, it doesn't matter if this is like a tiny email or like a letter or a postcard, is a reflection of our values. It's, Mark, it's tough for me to answer that question specifically without understanding your business, but just understanding that every little touch point that you have with a customer is an opportunity to reflect, you know, your values. And it just depends what those values are.
Thank you.
And I'm about to close out. Just this point, like, just keep it simple. Your brand is a relationship. So, you know, what kind of friend are you going to be? First and foremost, this goes a little bit out of the context of branding, but, you know, we all, I think, have to stop and think. It's not like, oh my God, how am I going to, no, just take a deep breath. This is something we've never experienced before. Collect yourself, because you don't want to reach out in desperation or do anything in desperation. Just stop and think. And once you have that moment of reflection, you know, like, start thinking, like, what matters most to my customer right now? You know, are they losing customers? Is their business drowning? In which case, you sending them an email about like your latest service is going to be very insensitive. So what matters most to your customer? Maybe it's something outside of the context of business. Maybe they're trying to balance, you know, their family life, you know, like, so think about that. Gestures don't have to be grand. You know, nobody here on the phone is Frito-Lay. We can't like spin out a, you know, fat ass commercial in like, you know, the 2 weeks. And we're not going to do that, but you could send a postcard and say, thinking about you, hope you're well. You could send them a bottle of wine. That would be really helpful. Whatever it is, but just little details just to know that you're there, you're thinking about them, and, how can you support them? And then, just very, humanistic. How can you make my customer's day better? A dear friend of mine is a very talented artist. And so, she creates for a living. And she said, man, I'm sure a lot of people are juggling their children. And so she created an online drawing course for children. This is an example of how you can make your customer's day better. And then just show people that you care. I don't mean to, and I hope I'm not coming off as unrealistic. Of course, you got to shut down the ship, eliminate any unnecessary expenses, make sure you can survive, etc. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to blow up unless you're Amazon or a grocery store or a liquor brand. You're not blowing up at this time. So how can you strengthen and sustain the relationships with your customer? And the way you're going to do that is by showing them that you care.
Melissa, thank you very much. We're going to have a time to come back after Sherman is done for more in-depth Q&A. All right, Sherman.
All righty, let me go ahead and get started. Let's just pull this up. View. All righty. Everybody, everything good?
Yes.
All right, so again, Sherman Wright, 1035, and I'm going to be brief because I want to get into the dialogue and conversations. Melissa shared a lot of great information, but a little bit about our company. We're 1035, a creative company transforming brands through culture. And literally, it's interesting, and I was so excited that Bruce asked me to participate because the things and the questions that you guys are asking are the things that I've been going through, just like the rest of you within my organization. For us, we operate in the world of marketing and advertising, but I don't call myself a marketing agency. I don't call myself an advertising agency. We're a creative company. What does that mean? By the definition of creativity, we take ideas and turn them into action. That is the nature of being creative. As a company, we're a collection of individuals who are passionate about what we do, and this idea of thought leadership and transforming that into actionable ideas. Transforming brands through culture. We work with brands to take them from relevant to remarkable. 60 days ago or 90 days ago, Zoom was a relevant brand. Now it is a remarkable brand. Why? Because it transformed through culture. And what I mean from culture is really the surroundings and everything that's influencing us on a daily basis. And navigating those waters to become successful, and more importantly, in this day and time, sustainable. For us, who we are, and this is just a snapshot of my beautiful team, really curious, creative thinkers who stay in culture all the time. This is
I can't see your presentation, so I'm not sure it's yet shared.
All right, I had to share a screen.
No.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead. Good now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I must have didn't go through when I shared it. So this is really who we are, curious, creative thinkers who stay in culture and all the time. And again, it's really about this idea of thought leadership and really how do you transform your business as well as your customer's business in good times as well as bad. A little bit about my story. I won't spend a lot of time here. I've been in marketing and advertising for a long time. I've had the privilege of working with Melissa and knowing Melissa probably over 15 years. And no different from you guys. One day I started with an idea, met a business partner, grew a marketing agency to a sizable size, ended up selling that business a few years back, and then kind of relaunched a new business based on just, you can call it being bored, you can call it just still wanting to continue to tell my story, but had some great success working with some phenomenal brands. So I'm a curious person by trade. I think as an entrepreneur, always be a continuous learner, always be curious, always ask questions, never believe that you know it all. And that's just kind of my life story. I've transformed that not only to an agency, but in other ventures as well. Here's where I really wanted to get into, and really I call it rising above, operating in a time of crisis. You know, when Bruce asked me to go into this, and Melissa shared a lot about branding, you know, these are the questions that I literally ask myself and go through every day. The first thing is rethink everything. Nothing is off limits. Know your business, know what's working, know what's not working, know what you need to let go. You know, the biggest advice I give to entrepreneurs and myself is there's 3 things to think about. What am I going to stop doing? What I'm going to start doing? What am I going to continue to do? The hardest thing to do by human behavior is stopping, because that's what behavior is. That's what habits are. So what are you going to stop doing today that you did yesterday in order to improve the chances of success for your business? What are you going to start doing? Are there certain things that you don't enjoy doing? Are certain things you've been putting off? Or certain things that you're seeing that you may have to go out and get more information or education on? And then what are you going to continue to do? What is working, and what do you feel can continue to work into the future?
Sherman, I just wasn't sure. Your screen isn't moving. Are you presenting anything, or? Okay, now we see. Okay, thank you.
You still haven't seen it?
Well, yeah, we see it now. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry. It was showing on my screen, so it's showing that it's displaying.
Okay.
And I won't go into full screen mode. That may be it, where it's causing some issues because it's a PDF, so I'll leave it here.
Okay.
The other thing is be bold and act fast. Make tough decisions quickly. You know, in my business, I had to let go of some people. I had to reduce salaries, and I made that decision in about 48 hours because I knew I didn't have time to contemplate. Unfortunately, you know, those are the hardest decisions to make when it comes to people, but I knew I had to act quickly and make some bold decisions for the sustainability of the business. Know what your customers need. It's not always what you have to give. 40% of my business with customers shifted in one area to the next within a 24-hour notice. They no longer needed 40% of what they had been working with me over for the course of several years. So, and part of that, knowing what my customer needed, I acted fast. I reduced the resources that weren't necessarily impacted by that business and added new resources to affect the new business. Solve, don't sell. You know, that's the biggest thing. People think about marketing and sales in the same category. Be seen as an asset versus an expense. When your client receives that invoice, or when your client is asking you to work for them, are you a liability or are you an asset? You know, what I said is, you know, to Melissa's point, strategic thinking, everybody wants a thinker. You know, nobody really is looking for a lot of order takers right now because they're trying to figure things out. And then Melissa touched upon this as well, which I think is very key. Relations last forever, transactions are short term. It is about the long term. You know, I've had clients that it took me 2 years of just building relationships. You know, I met Bruce about maybe a year ago, a little over a year and a half, and it went from a transaction meeting into a very productive relationship. And I say that is because people think of their friends and people think of individuals who they know versus a product or a service that they need to buy. And so for me, it's all about relationship, especially as an entrepreneur. People always ask me, how do I market my business? You are your business. People may know you and your business are one and the same. You know, I always tell people, if you look back several years ago and I said, Facebook, some people may know Mark Zuckerberg, some people may not know Mark Zuckerberg. Some people said, oh, I knew this guy named Mark Zuckerberg that started this company called Facebook, don't know much about it, but I know that guy. Now people say, oh, Facebook, it was started by Mark Zuckerberg. As an entrepreneur, you're always one and the same. Your business and your name, and both carry just as much weight. So never lose sight of who you are. And most times as an entrepreneur, you're the biggest marketing pillar for your business. And that goes down with having and establishing those relationships. And then, so getting into building your brand, and Melissa talked about some of these things. So really understanding your purpose. So I had to look back when COVID happened and said, what is our purpose? You know, what are we doing to add value? Because the market has changed. And then to Melissa's point, who are we? You know, are we going to be problem solvers? Are we going to be thinkers? Are we going to be individuals who are bringing solutions to the table? Are we going to be individuals that are always talking about why things can't be done because we don't have enough time or we don't have enough money? positioning what makes it stand out. And for us, it was saying, hey, there's a lot of advertising agencies out there. There's a lot of marketing agencies. But how many curious, creative companies do you know? It may take a little bit to explain because it is not necessarily the norm, but we pivoted out of the marketing and advertising agency because it was a crowded market and clients were cutting their advertising at a greater rate than we've ever known. So we had to redefine ourselves. And our value proposition was, hey, we're not going to increase market share. We're not going to help you with shares and sales. We're going to help you transform your brand through culture. We're going to help Pepsi connect with youth through their NBA relationships. We're going to help Nike redefine what that brand means in the world of Adidas and looking at the Yeezy brand. We're going to help Cavassier reestablish that brand in a very highly diluted spirits category. So our whole goal is let's transform your brand through the environment, through culture, and all these things that are really having a greater impact. So I ask you guys, what is your purpose today? And coming out of COVID, do you still have that same purpose? Who are you? Can you define your personality? You know, one of the questions was, how do I communicate my values? Your values are mostly through your action, through your words, and how you show up every day, how you treat your employees, how your employees treat their customers, and the materials that you can put out there. We can talk about, you know, marketing and advertising as far as the static pieces, but it's really, as entrepreneurs, that is kind of not what I would say I would focus my efforts on. I really focus on these areas here. And then proposition, to Melissa's point, what is the value that I bring? One of the things that I wanted to talk about is, like, how do you develop a plan? The first thing is insights. Who is your customer and what problems are you solving? So it never starts internally. There's a marketplace out there. I know who my customers are, and I know what problems that they have. When you look at millennials and Gen Y, it's an ever elusive segment. And with social media and so many different points of contact, marketing and media is very fragmented. So the insight I have is, how can I help them connect with this elusive audience in a very fragmented audience? Engagement, what is the best way to connect with your customer in the current environment? For us, that 40% of the business that I talked about was experiential and events. I did large events during All-Star Weekend, during Super Bowl, where we'd have 200. We go to social, we go to digital, and we go to consulting. And we ramp up those areas of interest. Actions, what benefits do we offer and what is expected of our customers? Our action is, hey, we're going to be your thought partner. We're going to help you figure out some things. And what we expect from you is trust. And we had to build and earn that trust over years. So our value proposition is, we give you thinking, you give us trust. If your trust matches our thinking, then we'll both be successful. And what is the impact? The impact is, we're seeing results in the business. We're seeing continued relationships with our client. And we're seeing our business actually grow in a time where there's not a lot of growth, based on being able to do all the things that I've outlined previously. So for me, it's really about understanding who you are, who do you do it for, what environment are you operating, what value are you bringing to the table, and then what is the outcome that you desire to see. And it's working forward and it's working backwards. And it's an everyday process. Every day I wake up and I look at my business and I go through this routine. I check in with my clients every day or every other day as much as possible, where it doesn't annoy them, but also with my employees as well, because timely information is what's most important right now. And so with that, what I wanted to do is refer to books. And I'm a big reader. To Melissa's point, by no means am I an expert. I'm reconsidering, reconfiguring, and rethinking everything that I do. But the first book is called A Breakthrough Company. And this is really, you may be familiar with the books Good to Great and Built to Last. And I learned early on, about 80% of books and success stories about business by the Harvard Business Review and others traditionally was about 5 companies. You know, the IBMs, the Coca-Cola. Now we're seeing it with the Facebooks, the Amazons, the Googles. But this book was, well, how did those companies become those companies before they were these titans in industry? And it really talks about, how do you go from an entrepreneur to a breakthrough company. You got to understand, a mid-sized company is defined as 200 million and less. So how do you go, when they talk about the big successful companies and you hear Amazon, these are billion market caps of, billions of dollars, but how do you go from starting in your garage to be a $200 million businesses? And I would challenge the group, how many have you heard those stories of people really detailing how you do that? This book walks you from a step-by-step process. I had my entire leadership team, and I say this, when I started my business, and we're all family here, it was a $300,000 investment. 10 years later, I exited that business for $27 million. I read this book, and it was my blueprint. And I'm not saying that will happen. And, over coffee or drinks or another call, I'll tell you what not to do to how to take a business from there to there. But what I want to let you know is the information is out there and it's doable. I was no different from everybody on this call, where I was at every session where I could go to any kind of entrepreneurial insight, any leader. And that's why I do these calls. That's why I open up my LinkedIn. That's why I talk to people, because I understand how hard it is. The other book that I'm recommending is Restoring the Soul of Business, Staying Human in the Age of Data. Everybody's talking about, I saw questions earlier about SEO and how do I take data and analytics. And, I had the privilege of seeing the author speak, and this gentleman was the head of intelligence for Publicis, which is one of the largest holding companies in the world of advertising. And as much as he's seen the growth of digital and data, he said, what we're losing is humanity in business. COVID is now definitely having people reevaluate and rethink about humanity in our business, because it is no longer a separation of church and state. And if you think about it, the separation of church and state, you're in trouble. So what is the soul of your business? What is the essence? What is the value? What is the spirit? There's a book by Thomas Gadd called 4D Branding. In this book, he talks about 4 quadrants of a brand. You have the functional, which is Coca-Cola. It is a beverage. I drink it. It quenches my thirst. You have the personal. I like Coke because it reminds me as a young kid sitting at my grandfather's lap, having a Coke, drinking while we fished. There's the social. Hey, all the cool kids drink Coke, and I really feel good drinking Coke because all the cool kids do it. Concentration in sugar, and there's heavy concentration in communities of color. And are they doing a great job of really putting information about the adverse effects? So when you think about your brand, the functional is easy. I make a tennis shoe, you run, and it works on your foot. The social is easy. Hey, all the cool kids are balling in Jordans, and I'm in Jordan. The personal is, hey, I really feel good wearing Jordans. But the social is, Nike has kid camps in China. Nike's not investing in the communities. And in this day and age of transparency, it's seeing more than not. So I challenge you, as you think about your brand, it really starts personal and goes beyond into those other areas of the spiritual, as well as the functional, as well as the social. And with that, out of respect for time and just wanting to take questions, I'm going to end there and just kind of open it up for conversation. So that's all I have, Bruce.
Hey, Sherman, thank you. And I love what both of you said about living your values. How do you communicate your values? It's about your actions with your employees, with your customers, with the people that you touch. It's more about what you do than what you say. And I think that's so true. Having had a chance to visit with Melissa at her office a few times, one thing Melissa always does is introduce me to every employee in her office when I'm there, which speaks volumes to me about how important her team is in what her company does day in and day out. And I think that's just a wonderful thought for all of us to keep in mind. So let's throw it open. There was one question earlier on. So if you have a question, please go ahead and ask it in the chat room. But there was a question about how do you get rid of or get out of bad fits? I guess there could be products that don't fit, services that don't fit, or maybe employees don't fit. How do you recognize it? How long do you live with it? And then what do you do about it? Go ahead, Melissa.
When it comes to employees, again, this is a little outside of the context of branding and marketing, you know, it's hard to fire somebody. But the way that I reconciled it is, you know, how are you going to let your weakness or your hesitance stop this person from going where they're really meant to be? Because it's obviously not with you. And so you got to think about it selflessly. Like, you know, if things are not working for you, it's probably not working for them. So just let people go so that they can actually realize themselves in a better place. In terms of clients, I think it's extremely, extremely important to build relationships with businesses peripheral to your business. Okay. So like I said, you know, maybe I don't want a customer who's going to be at a certain size, or, you know, I do branding. People are like, hey, do you do PR? Can you get me in the news? No, that's not my thing, you know? So I maintain relationships with PR agencies. I try to maintain relationships with other firms who are maybe individual practitioners, so that instead of saying somebody no, you say, I know somebody who would be perfect for you. They're probably even, you know, a little less expensive, or whatever it is, but like maintain those relationships so you can, to Sherman's point, be an asset even when you're not necessarily like selling.
And just quickly, you know, I'll add to that. You know, I always say start with the why. Why is it a bad fit? You know, and so from a business practice, somebody once told me, fire fast and hire when it hurts. So just like any kind of thing that is unhealthy, you try to remove that out of the ecosystem, out of your body. So if something's not working for you, you want to, you know, going back to act in a very swift manner. The other thing is when you go to your why, you know, I say start with these 3 questions. Is it personal? Is it emotional? Or is it a function of the business? Because sometimes bad fits, maybe I just don't like that person, but they do an amazing job and they're having great results. The emotional piece is, hey, this is a bad fit because I'm dealing with some other things. The functional fit is this person is not the best in the industry, and they all may overlap, but if you can identify where the bad is coming from and you can concentrate on the why, it will stop you and hopefully prevent you from making bringing other things to the table that may not be as healthy for your business overall.
Great.
Great point.
Thanks,
So someone had asked a question about the book. Was it the last book? Was it titled 4D Branding?
Yes, by Thomas Gadd, 4D Branding. And it's basically brands live in the 4th dimension. In a 3D world, brands live in 4 dimensions.
Okay,
So,
great.
under most circumstances, businesses are, especially startup, younger businesses, are always stretched for having enough financial resources. And in this period of time, way more so because of all these challenges we're dealing with. How do you stretch the resources you have potentially to make an impact? What are some of the things you might suggest where there aren't a lot of resources to invest in this right now, where they might have some meaningful impact on building awareness, developing more of a customers, more prospective customers, so forth? Any thoughts, either of you?
You know, I'll go quickly. And for me, and again, just in my journey, you know, part of it is you eliminate as much waste as you can. And there's 2 things that you look at in business. There's the idea of having, you know, the level of cash flow to operate and sustain your business. And then there's those things that you would like to invest as far as business development. You know, if it's an operating cost, then you start with just making sure you understand the operations of your business and can efficiently as effectively have that business, hopefully that the revenue that business is seeing is sustaining that business from an operational standpoint. If it's a growth investment aspect of the business, and where do I put resources? You know, what I've learned is, you know, as an entrepreneur, I was the best new business tool that I had. And a lot of it is I did a couple of things. One, I went where my customers were and built those relationships. So if there was a conference, or a seminar, and I know this is a whole nother session about how do you network in social distancing, which, you know, is a great topic. And I've had a couple of those conversations as well. But you just really make it more about what can you do from a labor standpoint and connecting with those customers. LinkedIn is another great tool. I've done things as shoot them an article, or if they were featured in something, giving them suggestions like, hey, I see you're doing this, but really showing that I know as much as humbly possible about their business and I can add value with suggestions versus trying to sell. Again, solve problems versus sell, and use that way to kind of from an investment of a resources when resources are limited.
So, great point, Sherman. So how to network in social distancing. I think that's a very interesting topic. Did I hear you just volunteer to do another workshop for us?
We can definitely talk about it, but in all seriousness, I know a gentleman who specializes in that area and has written a book about it and is one of the leading networks out there, and that's something that we can discuss.
We definitely need that, but I do have a couple of questions. So one is, you mentioned something about checking in with your clients and how important that is, especially during COVID-19. I've had several of our clients to come to me and say, Quandra, I was in Whole Foods at one point, I was meeting my customers, and now that's not an option for me. I'm having a hard time connecting with my clients. Or I was selling t-shirts and I was going to the stores, and now the stores are no longer open. Now that connecting with those clients are no longer an option for me. So can you just explain a little bit about, and same thing with you, Melissa, how to check in with clients? Like, what's the best way to do that?
Melissa, I'll let you go ahead and I'll follow up since I answered the last one.
Yeah, well, very technically speaking, all we have is the computer and the phone. So one is knowing how customers like to be communicated with. One thing is that you want to check in, but I know some customers, they're texters. Some people like the phone, some people like email. So first, knowing how they like to be communicated and leveraging those things. The other thing, I mentioned the postcard, you know what I mean? Like, you could always send something. Oh, during this time, I sent one of my customers a bottle of scotch, another person a bottle of wine, another person like a fun product to try out, another person a letter, you know what I mean? Like the phone, email, obviously for business, but what is another kind of expression of your intention with that customer, another reflection of your business, your values that you might be able to put in the post and get out to them, you know what I mean?
That's a good
simply,
point.
that's what I see.
Absolutely.
There was an interesting a segment on this morning's news, I think it was ABC, about a produce wholesaler who service strictly restaurants. And obviously that business has basically disappeared. He has changed his business entirely to now delivering directly to homes, taking that same produce that he was selling to restaurants and now selling it in kits, mixed produce kits of 2 different sizes to homes. And apparently that's tiding him over this challenging time. So it's at least one example of approach somebody took.
That's a great.
And guys, this is not an easy task. I have a meeting with my team, my leadership team every week, and we're on a 90-day window that our business, we're challenging ourselves to be relevant in 90 days. Most people say, what is your 5-year plan? Ours is a 90-day plan with weekly check-ins and a 30-day evaluation to see if we need to change direction. That is how responsive it is on our business. And when I say I literally call my clients every week, I do, because then I give an update on the team, and I have all my leaders call and say, what's the feedback? In a week, we had 3 key clients that left the company due to layoffs. Those were our primary relationships. So now we don't even know who to call because they're gone. We haven't, seen any adverse fallout, but I said, hey guys, 3 of our key clients that were controlling a percentage of our business are gone. I'm saying in 30 days, that piece of business will be gone. We need to think of something else. Now it's not gone. It hasn't shown any signs of leaving, but 3 of the key leaders are gone. If they leave, then my expectation is those other individuals, that piece of business will be gone. That's how timely this is. And I just say that it doesn't have to be on that scale, but I just want to give you context of how to think about your business. And that's what I say, stop, start, and continue. I used to never think about my business like that, but I'm starting now. I stopped thinking about my business on an annual basis.
Yeah, and just very quickly to add to that, so that nobody takes this for granted, both myself, Sherman, everybody on the phone, stay in touch with your customer's business. Just like Sherman said, like, we do on our weekly, meetings, and we just started, making a point of this, like, give me an update on that customer's business. Not what you did, not that little tchotchke you were supposed to deliver, not that PowerPoint presentation you've been working on, but like what is happening in their business. Because if you don't know what's happening in your customers' lives, and mind you, we have a diverse amount of businesses on the phone. If you're dealing with individuals, then, we can all relate to that personally. But if it's an auto company, a nonprofit, the city, whatever the case may be, how critical is it for you to stay connected? So when you do get on the phone, you're talking in context.
Great. So just in the interest of time, I know it's a little bit past 3. I do have one other question. So maybe you or Melissa Sherman or Melissa can answer really quickly. Is about how to build a team without capital. How do you build a team from a pop-up retail and party company with little to no capital? I don't know if that's a marketing branding question. If that's something you can answer, that would be great.
Very quickly, I'm going to, refer to Sherman here. He's on this side of my screen, which is why. Purpose. Money, we all got to pay the rent. Don't get me wrong. But people are driven by knowing that they're doing something that matters. And so many, Sherman can tell you from his books, I can tell you from experience, how many executives have brought on people for a fraction of what they're worth, or not even any money, just saying, hey, I know you care about making people feel good. This is what my business is about. That's how you attract people. Not only do you attract them with limited resources, but you attract people who are going to be invested in what you actually do and are not just in there because you offer a nice little, gym membership with your compensation package. So purpose is everything. That's what motivates people.
Great. Wonderful. Anything you want to add, Sherman, before we wrap up?
No, I would say, I put it like this. In the NBA, a basketball team has 5 players on the team. But if you go to any NBA team, those are the 5 most diverse players from team to team. So while they may have the same position, when people tell me they need to build a team, I'm like, well, it always goes back with the why. Who do you need on your team? Also look at the other players on the team and find those fits. Because some people say, hey, I want to go to an organization where I have freedom to do X, Y, and Z. So really find out what people's needs are, understand the needs of the team, and allow your value proposition to do that. To Melissa's point, I've had people who were like, hey, I'm looking to learn in this. I'm willing to volunteer my time. I found some very young, talented people that were not as experienced. I had to do a little bit more hand-holding and overseeing, but they were hungry, they were eager. I had some people that were seasoned veterans that I just said, hey, I need somebody that can own this and run this and free me up. So really understanding what your needs are. To Melissa's point, what is that value proposition, that win-win? And start the dialogue there.
Great, wonderful.
Well, Quandra, before we end the call, I was just going to ask Melissa and Sherman if it would be okay to share the slide presentations with the attendees on this call. Is that all right?
Yeah, I'll share it with the attendees on the call. The one thing I wanted to also offer is, LinkedIn is my best way of reaching me. I try to answer every message I get on LinkedIn. Email gets a little crazy for me. So LinkedIn, and even Quandra, and I don't know timing, if I know people have to leave, but if you leave the call open, I'm more than willing to sit and answer questions that may not. I have about 30 minutes that are free.
Great.
Walk the dog, or make my daughter do it. So I'm more than willing to sit on for the extra 30 minutes. I'm not going anywhere. I have nothing to do.
Okay.
So I'm more than willing to do that, because I know sometimes it's hard to get those questions and people have specific questions. So
I appreciate that.
For another 30 minutes if people want to hang on.
Great. So we're not in a rush. So people who have to drop off, by all means, please do so. But if you do have questions, as Sherman has already offered, to stay online and to answer your questions, which we really do appreciate very much. And I'll stay on the call as well.
Thank you. Quandra, thank you again. I'm going to have to sign off. I have another call to get to, but Melissa, Sherman, thank you. All the entrepreneurs, thank you for participating. This has been an interesting pivot, right, Quandra? I think for us.
Absolutely.
I think we've more than tripled the attendance of any of our prior workshops doing this one for the first time in a virtual format. So kudos to you, Quandra. So
Thank you. Appreciate
thank you
it.
all, and I'm going to sign off
See
now.
you
and
later,
hope to
Bruce.
see you all in person soon. Thank you both.
Hopefully,
Okay.
absolutely.
Take
You know,
care.
this setup makes me think of the Brady Bunch. I don't know,
There
it's
you
just
go.
like,
Stay healthy.
Totally.
but I want to definitely thank everyone who did submit your feedback and your comments in the Eventbrite. We were able to actually go over them, some of them, and you all had some really good challenges. I like some of the things you put in, what type of workshops you would like to see, as well as some of the needs that you need from Next Level Exchange. So we're going to take all that feedback, and we're going to really put some thought around that so we can really start to support the needs of you all. And I think Sherman also made a good point of attending every session as an entrepreneur. When he just showed up. He made sure he was there, he was ready, he got the information, he connected, he networked, as well as I'm sure he provided feedback on different things that he would like to, you know, be a part of. And so you all doing that has really been very helpful. And I wrote down a couple of things that I just wanted to throw out. Someone mentioned something about innovative branding and online business, COVID-19 marketing, and revenue pivoting during COVID-19. So I don't know, Melissa or Sherman, if maybe you can talk about maybe innovative branding. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Maybe you can share that with, so that was some of the challenges people were facing was innovative branding. As well as online business, doing online business, COVID-19 kind of marketing, as well as revenue pivoting during COVID-19.
Yeah, I don't have a catch-all for innovative branding. I think I would hearken back to the statement that I made about a brand being a relationship. And when you break it down that way, you're not thinking about like your ability to have an event or your ability to like put an ad on a bus or whatever. You're just thinking about like, how can I show up in the world? And so I would just kind of step back and pull away everything you know about branding and say, all right, how can I connect with my consumer at this time? And like I said, it could be sending a care package. It could be more frequently. It could be offering them an idea to help them with their business. All things are just human, helpful actions, but in this world that we live in, that's your brand. Like Sherman said, you are your brand. So how you act is an extension of that. And then when you pivoting, certainly I can't catch all do that because it just depends your business, but I would refer to Bruce's example. This dude going from like, I'm delivering produce to restaurants, I'm delivering produce to your door. You are, let's say, an artist who's selling in stores all the time. People aren't going to stores. Maybe you start doing lessons online, like just looking at the ingredients behind what you do and how can you make a different dish with them. And I hate to be so broad, but it just depends on a specific industry that you're in, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is, are you seeing a demand for your business? Not only for your business, but others in the same business. And this goes back to going to reevaluate everything. I think the brand is what you make it. And the brand is what is received by your audience, your customers, or your consumers. So when I think of innovative branding, like even for me, and I use this as an example, because this is a real life story. Like right before COVID, I sat with my team and we've had some great successes and we're on a trajectory up. And I said, guys, we got to change. And everybody's like, what do you mean we got to change? Like this category, this industry is so competitive. We got to think differently. We got to challenge ourselves. And it hasn't been smooth. It's been very difficult. So I think innovative branding is understanding the environment you're operating in. And there's a difference between relevant and remarkable. Remarkable is breakthrough. You know, if I had to tell you what is a relevant brand is, you know, tissue, you know, and everybody was freaking out when there was no longer Sherman because they had to get the Mariano's toilet paper. And I want my Sherman because that is a remarkable brand in the world of toilet paper versus relevant, which is the Mariano's brand. But they do the same purpose. Like at the end of the day, they serve the same purpose and they end up in the same spot. And it's personal relationship you have with your toilet paper that makes one different than the other. You can go on the aisle and buy the cheapest toilet paper, but how many people go say, I want the cheapest toilet paper I can find? No, because there's other emotional connections and there's functional benefits. But I use that as an example of how you can think about your brand. Are you Mariano's are you Sherman? And there's a technology, there's a secret sauce to it, but the reality of it is you do the same thing and you end up in the same place. What's the differentiator? If you can't define that about your business, then it's more about innovative branding, is, you know, revisiting the brand.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, everybody gave some really good feedback when you were registering through Eventbrite. Does anyone have any challenges or anything that they want to share with Melissa and Sherman over the next few minutes or so? Because I know I'm looking at the names. We have a quite diverse group of businesses. We have someone who is an electrician who's in the service business. We have people who bake goods. We have people who sell T-shirts. We had someone who was a fitness trainer. So we have quite a few different businesses. So I'm just wondering, I'm sure you all don't have the same challenges.
I'm going to call somebody out on the call. And
All right, put them on the spot.
Regine is somebody that I know personally, but more importantly, been very impressed with her business. She had to pivot. She has, and I'll let her talk about her business. But Regine, how have you been, you know, connecting with partners? I've been to a couple of your functions that have been on these Zoom calls, but she had a business that was 90% of her was being in different cities in front of different people, in an environment that we don't know if it's going to go back, but her business has seen an uptick based on some of the things that she's done. So Regine, can you kind of share your stories of what you know, over the last 30 to 60 days? I'm a little biased because I got a chance to watch you do it, but just kind of some of the things you were thinking, what you were able to do, and how you've been able to sustain that momentum.
Sure. Thank you, Sherman. I am not going to do video because nobody needs to see what's happening here. Okay. I am in full work from home mode. But so my business is Shall We Wine. We are an experiential marketing company. And I also, the reason that I travel is because I do regular TV appearances talking about wine and spirits. So we service the wine and spirits industry. And so when the shelter in place was put into effect, everything we had on the books was completely canceled. What I had to ask myself, and the pivot for me was, you know, I knew how to throw an event together. Part of the work that we do is not just in-store demos for our clients, but we also do corporate events, we do private events. So I asked myself, could I throw an event online? Could I throw a virtual wine tasting? And at first the answer was, I don't think I can, because people have to actually taste the wine. Then when I went a little bit deeper, I thought, well, of course I can. I just have to create the experience and provide a different type of experience. So what Sherman was talking about is we do a regular cocktail hour on Fridays at 6 p.m. on Zoom. And what we do is we teach people how to make simple cocktails with ingredients that they have at home. But we've added a few components to it. I've stayed in front of my clients by inviting them to come on the program and to talk about their brands. And then I pivoted again, and I started offering these cocktail hours to corporations who have teams who are working remotely. So is it the same revenue stream that I had before COVID? No, but is it a revenue stream? Absolutely. And more importantly, I'm excited because, you know, Sherman was talking about his business and saying that he knew something had to change. I knew something had to change with our business model. And now I am engaged in activities that will help me change once this is over, once we're back to normal. So thank you for the opportunity.
And just to build on that, Regine, what we're seeing now also is now, you know, individuals are doing private dinner parties with friends and family. They're having her kind of participated, but I was very impressed with the way that she reacted in a very timely manner while opening up new opportunities that weren't necessarily, you know, a virtual cocktail our happy wine tasting never existed. Now that is a norm, and now she's created a vertical. Even when she can go back and get in front of people, it doesn't mean that this is going to go away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Wow, that's amazing. Virtual cocktail hours. Who would have ever thunk it? That's so amazing. Great. Well, I mean, if there aren't any other questions, or if you don't want to share anything else regarding your challenges, what other kind of, things you would like to see, or any assistance with some of the things that you're working on right now, if you have the experts here. If you have no other questions, then I'm just going to want to give 2 thumbs up to our presenters. Can I get a hand clap? Can somebody flash a hand clap or something on the screen? We really thought your presentations were excellent. So really appreciate you. And we really hopefully we'll all work together again in the near future. And once again, thank you so much for your time. And so I will share your presentation as well as your contact information. However, I've been holding our presenters' information hostage because people don't like to fill out my surveys, my poll survey. So if you give me something, I give you something. I'm just kidding, but I really would like for you all to fill out the poll surveys once I send their information out. Please, we need that feedback so we can continue to provide valuable content to you all. So once again, thank you, and I can go ahead and end the meeting unless you just want to stay on, Sherman, and I'll let everybody, you can see if people have something to say.
Hey, if people have questions, like I said, I got a good 12 minutes. I'm sitting here. So if people want to stay, I'll stay. If not, then I'll go walk my dog.
I actually have to get off, but after you get your post-survey responses, my email address is accessible to anybody who has any follow-up questions. And, we all got things to do, but I'm also happy to take a phone call and talk a little bit as well, okay? So I hope you all have a afternoon and a wonderful weekend. Oh, and somebody has a question. Send it to me if I can help, but I have to get off now, okay? Have a beautiful.
Okay. Memory, did you want to ask Sherman your question? What's your question? Go ahead. Let me see. Okay. I'm muted. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. This is Memory Knox. I am a startup business. My business is an innovative clothing line, and my business model was to have my clothing sold online and actually have my employees work from home. So all of this is actually fitting in with my plan. Can you give some really strong advice for the best way of branding and marketing for a startup business? I know it may look different. It may look different 6 months ago, but now I just wanted to know if there's any advice you can give for the startup businesses who really, really need to saturate the market with their business as a startup. If you can give some really, really good advice for a startup business.
So, part of, and it's going to be a couple of questions I ask you because I got to think about it is, you have a clothing line, and who's your audience of that clothing line? Because, clothes are so personal. Clothes are so reflective of an individual, and people have options. Like, what makes do you have a current following of individuals really appreciate your clothing line? Or are you trying to penetrate the market? Are you so early on that you don't have a following, like you are a true startup, or do you have a little history? And it just gives me some context is why I'm asking.
I'm a true startup.
Okay. So part of the clothing line, and again, I'm going to ask you about you personally, is are you somebody that people look to for your fashion sense? Like, are you a influencer? Do people, comment on you like, hey, how you want to start focusing on you? Because that's probably what you're going to really need to leverage to get the brand out there. And I'm going to talk about a couple of ways that you can do that. But I want to kind of have some context on you personally as a brand.
Thank you for that question. the answer is yes. And it's funny that you asked me that, because as I continue to work on my business, people that know me personally will say to me, you know, you really need to be the face of your business, which is what I did not want to do. So I just want to. Yeah.
So first of all, you have a great name, Memory Knox. I don't know if that's the name. So the name is memorable, no pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the name on my birth certificate. That's my
So
name.
you have a great name. Here's the idea. I always start with, what can you do from a thought leadership standpoint? And part of what you have access to right now is social media, as well as, can you start commenting on what people should be thinking about? What does fashion look like with sheltering in place or limited exposure? Like, how can you take your expertise, build that into a brand, and then start suggesting things to wear? So it's not going to be an overnight sensation, but I would say for somebody such as you, like Regine said, how do I start doing dinner parties? How do you give fashion advice for people under the current situations that they're not hearing from others? Can you do opt-ed into blogs, into fashion, and start submitting articles about your brand? And then at the end of it, put in your bio, you know, Memory is the owner and creator of X brand, a clothing company designed for those who blah, blah, blah. To learn more, log on to our email or do this or that. You got to start creating a narrative around your brand to gain attention, because just me seeing clothes not going to get me enough to say, oh, tell me more. It's really about Memory Knox, you know. And I keep going back to Regine, because I've worked with her. She's done a really good job of getting her brand out there and selling her story, and Shall We Wine follows. Because right now you are the lead car in your brand. You can't lead with your brand because nobody knows your brand. People probably know more you than your brand. So you're going to have to put yourself out there in some way. I'm not saying all the way, but it's really a balance.
Mm-hmm. That is some great advice. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're
We
welcome.
have someone else. Unfortunately, the chat
All right, who's that?
comments are gone. So someone else had a question. Can you please ask it? Okay. Well, I thought someone else had a
I
question.
see. Is this Skinny Minnie? Is she still on?
Yes, I'm
Yes,
still
she
on.
is.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, I see your question, Skinny.
Okay, good.
Yes. Hi, Sherman. Thank you. Your presentation was awesome. It definitely.
Okay. I saw her in the queue for a while, so I just
So we call it the Uber cleaning.
Okay.
So I send out work depending on who grabs it. First come, first serve. You have it. Also, we do wellness check. We care about the workers as well. We have penciled around, call them, text, personal email, but there are some that just not moving because they are afraid. Right now, I have moved into a space to do Zoom interviews. So I have some interviews set up as well. But my question is, I don't want to be insensitive to the people that are not interested in moving forward, but the culture of the workers is to be more entrepreneurs. So from your standpoint, what do you think and what do you suggest?
So do you work in a specific area that you concentrate on? Because if there's still demand, which is awesome, if people still want people to come in their house, what you have to now is focus on your assets with workers. So obviously, if you're not seeing a significant issue, is I would say a push strategy versus a pull. So people are pulling, wanting your services. What I would do is, in these areas, I would go to organizations such as Sunshine, if there's local business or even churches, and say, I'm looking for workers.
Nice.
I'm looking for workers, and I'm going to build up a clientele because people need work. People know how to clean. Saying, have other people do your search. To your point, do a Zoom call, go through the training, make sure you have the proper PPE. Here are the 10 things to do when you go to somebody's house. This is what our service does. This is what I'm required of you. We go through these processes and procedures. This is this. I'm sure that churches, organizations that have a lot of people looking for work will probably send people your way that are looking to work. I mean, just like anything, employees and workers or contract laborers, it's a risk of chance and toss. Some people show up, some people don't. Some people work out, some people don't. But you want to develop a pool of people and get people to push opportunities to you. So does that make sense?
Absolutely. Nice. That's definitely great feedback. And with that being said, I will be reaching out to Sunshine starting first off.
Yeah, I'm sure Sunshine has a lot of, and I know Joel personally, have a lot of great people that are involved with the ministry and the organization that are looking for work.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sherman.
Great. I think we have a question from
You're welcome.
Khalid. Do we have any other questions?
Any other questions? I got a couple of minutes left. Was it Darrell? Is that correct? Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, Sherman. Hey, Sherman, how you doing?
I'm good, brother. And yourself?
I've been okay, man. You did a good presentation today, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm in this new market of solar marketing, and I'm brand new to it. I've been a 20-year electrician. I'm in the service division, and service electrician and things of that nature. But I'm trying to get into the solar market, and I'm trying to figure a way how to brand the market where I can reach the customers with this COVID-19 thing. What do you think about more of email marketing some things that I can do to market the solar business?
So help me understand, because I do not know a lot about the solar business. Is it business to business? So in the solar business, you're selling to kind of suppliers of energy? Are you trying to go direct to customers, like a person like me saying, hey, you can bring solar products into your home? Is this the solar panels on home? So I'm trying to get an understanding of the market so I can kind of give you some guidance. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you.
Thing that I could say, I would define my audience pool, and it may be those that are concerned about the environment. So, I want to find people who are, and again, I don't know how to find this audience, but I would narrow my customer group first versus saying consumer, and saying who is most likely to have a concern, and is there any kind of behavior that I can find to see that that's tracking. Small businesses, I don't if you want to hit me up and we can have another conversation about it, because I just need more information before I can actually tell you this is what I would do. Does that make sense? I can't hear you. Just hit me on the chat. Hit me on the chat, and we can follow up.
And now also make sure that you all get Sherman's information. But like he said, LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach him. Yeah. So with that being said, Sherman, I really want to thank you so much. Unfortunately, I've been kicked off Zoom about 10 times. And all the comments were deleted. So I kept coming in at bits and pieces. But I really thank you so much. You've done an excellent job. I'm looking forward to hopefully having another workshop with you in the near future. And can't thank you, I really do appreciate this. So.
Thank you. This is awesome. Good luck, everybody. We're all figuring this out together. Nobody has all the answers. The fact that you're here means so much to me, and we'll all come out winners. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Quandra. Thank you again, Quandra.
You're welcome.